Hi everybody, this is the Night Breeze, and I'm back with you again with lesson number 3 about my Advanced Dungeons and Dragons um, lessons here. Today we're going to be discussing the different races of player characters. Now, for the races, I'm mainly going to be using First Edition um, because they had the largest amount between the first and second. Second edition actually got rid of one of the player races. So, and I'm going to try something different. I hope you you like this setup. Let me. I'm going to try to put up with a book here so that you can see it in there too. Okay. So we are in the player's handbook right here, and we're going to start off. We're going to go in the order they have them here, and we're going to start with the dwarves. Now everybody knows your classic dwarf. Short, barrel-like, long beard. Typically they dwell in hills or mountains. There's multiple types, but the main two types of dwarves you find in first and second edition are either hill dwarves or mountain dwarves. Later expansions and stuff, they added in like um, deep dwarves and gully dwarves and all that, but I'm not going to go into those. A dwarven character, if you're using the level limits. Personally, I ignore the level limits. I do understand the thought behind it, but I ignore them. So, if you're using that rule, a dwarven fighter could be a maximum of 9th level. A thief, and the thief goes for all races. A thief has unlimited advancement. Doesn't matter what race you are. You can be up to a 9th level assassin. And then this in showing here that doesn't show up, but there was also a possibility, second edition, for clerics on dwarves, and I didn't even realize that it wasn't listed as for first edition. I think I don't know where the chart is that showed me the level limits. But yeah, dwarven clerics were limited as well. I just don't remember. Well, let me see if I have that book handy. Let's not under that part. Okay, I can actually get easy here. Yeah, I'd have to do search and everything. Whoops, wrong. So I'll when we get into the discussion of the different classes, I'll have that information for you. So to progress on. They also have the ability to perform in in multiple classes at the same time. So they could be a fighter thief. Again, I think it may just be second edition, but I believe fighter cleric was also allowed. Now, because of the nature, dwarves are non-magical creatures. They, so they'll never become wizards or gain magical spells. But at the same time, they get a bonus to their saves versus spells. By wands, staves, rods, and spells. And that's +1 for every 3.5 points of Constitution. So a dwarf with a Constitution of 7 has a +2. For a 14 would be +4, and an 18 would be +5. Okay. They also have exceptional strength when for poisons or other toxins. They get a saving throw bonus against poison with the same bonus. Now, all dwarves, if you're using the optional language rules, usually I just, within reason, I let my characters, or my players speak whatever. But yeah, if you're using those rules, all dwarves gain the ability to speak Dwarven, Gnome, Goblin, Kobold, and Orcish. They really don't like a lot of those races, some of those races. They're also able to speak the common tongue of humankind. Basically, it really boils down to the English of that world. But it's, not counting their alignment language, which I'll get into that when we discuss alignment. They're unable to learn more than 2 additional languages, no matter what their intelligence. That's a limit that I believe only dwarves have. Usually there's a limit based off the intelligence score. Higher intelligence, more languages. Dwarves are able to, or have infravision. They can, and it's handled, different DMs handle the infravision differently. Some of them are pretty strict that it's, you're just seeing heat. So kind of your infrared. Others use it as a basically night vision, see in the dark situation. It depends, on each DM. And they can see up to 60 foot with that. They're because of the fact that by the lore and everything, dwarves are miners. You think back to all the tales you hear as a kid, I think of dwarves. They're usually miners. So because of that, they can detect certain things when they're within 10 foot of it. Except for there's one of them which can be done at any distance. But they can detect the grade or slope in a passage up or down with a 75% probability. And it actually says to use a D4, and if you roll 1 through 3, bang, they know what the grade is. They can detect new destruction or passage in tunnel. So if they're walking down a tunnel and it's brand new, or relatively new, again, they have a 75% chance of that. They can detect sliding or shifting walls or rooms. So if you got some mechanism that's going to move rooms around on them, or change the walls, stuff like that, they have a 66 2/3% probability. So you roll a d6, and on a 1 to 4, they are able to do it. They can detect traps that are involving pits, falling blocks, and other stonework. Your classic Indiana Jones boulder set up to come crush you. Or a pit trap, stuff like that. They got a 50% chance of that. And they suggest either a D4 with a 1 to 2 or a D6 with 1 to 3. To roll that chance. And then the one that can be used at any distance, determine their approximate depth below ground. And they got a 50% chance of that. Basically, give them pretty close, within reason, how deep they are underground. Now, the thing is, the dwarf must actually be seeking to determine the information, not just walking along and, oh! Though I would argue myself that a brand new tunnel, or very, with one that was just within a day or two, they should be able to detect that easily, without having to actively search, just because, well, you got the perfectly smooth walls or whatever. Okay, when they're in combat, a dwarf adds a +1 to their to hit rolls if they're fighting half-orcs, goblins, hobgoblins, or orcs. That's because they despise that race, or those races. They want to annihilate. And when they're being attacked by ogres, trolls, ogre magi, giants, and or titans, dwarves get a 4 bonus. There's 2 ways. It can be a penalty to the opponent's to hit roll, or you can apply it as a bonus to their armor class. It's basically the same thing, in a lot of ways. Though technically it's supposed to be a minus to hit roll. Because of the dwarf's small stature and the ability against those much larger creatures. I mean, when you got somebody that's 4 foot and somebody that's 12 foot is trying to hit them, they got a chance of getting into areas where, between their legs or whatever, yeah. Okay. And, I think I mentioned it, but I'll mention it here for sure. Dwarven characters get a bonus of +1 added to their initial constitution, and a penalty of 1 to their charisma due to their racial characteristics. But it's very important to note the actual charisma score prior, because a dwarf interacting with a dwarf is not going to have that penalty. So, so in the example they give here, let us suppose a player who has rolled a charisma score of 18 decides to have a dwarven character, thus reducing it by 1 due to racial characteristics. But the highest score a dwarf can have is 16, so it's recorded as a 16. But with regard to non-dwarven henchmen, the character is limited to a maximum of 8. But with regard to dwarves, the character has a score of 18 charisma, so up to 15. What that means is they can have 8 non-dwarven henchmen, or they can have up to 15 dwarven henchmen. In that situation. Okay. So, that's kind of your dwarves. There's actually kind of a picture here. I'll just show that real quick. You got your dwarf here. A human. Everyone knows what that is. Your elf. The half-orc. And the half-elf. Now, there is a couple... Or there is one missing, or 2 missing in this picture. The halfling and the gnome are not in that picture. So, but that brings us to elves. There's a lot of different of the elves. Now, player characters are considered to be high elves, which is the most common. A elven character can be a fighter up to level 7, a magic user up to level 11, a thief, or an assassin up to the 10th level. They can also be multi-class, and again, they're not showing the cleric. So, for whatever reason here, I'm not Sure, I'm gonna look real quick. Yeah. Okay, yeah, this is just kind of must be a issue with this handbook. 'Cause I just looked at another race real quick, and it's also not showing clerics. I'm not sure what the level limit is off the top of my head. Actually, I just thought I found that here. Oh no, let's hit dice. Okay. But yeah, they can be clerics as well. And actually, well, half elves are showing able to be cleric. But yeah, dwarves and everything, every race has clerics. The priests of their deities. So I don't know why it's not showing up in most of those. But they can also be multi-class. Pretty much anything, any combination except their assassin. They can, I believe, fighter cleric was possible. Then you got your mage thief, fighter mage, fighter thieves, or a fighter mage thief, which is going to be slow to progress, but especially at higher, once you hit certain higher levels, be just an annihilating machine. Okay, if it's multi-class, the following restrictions apply. They can operate freely with the benefits of armor, weapons, and magic items available to their classes. Any thieving is restricted to the armor and weapons usable by the thief class. All experience they earn is divided between the three. And that happens even if they hit their maximum. So, they become the maximum level they can be as a fighter and a mage. Well, the thief class still takes only a third of the XP. Now, elven characters have a 90% resistance to sleep and charm spells. So they are, considering the sleep spell is one of the two most common, or most effective spells at a low level mage. It really does help. So I mean, it's kind of yeah. Okay, when employing either a bow of any sort except a crossbow, it doesn't count for crossbows, or a short or long sword, elves gain a +1 to their hit roll. So, that could be a very handy benefit for them. All elves are able to speak Elvish, Gnome, Halfling, Goblin, Hobgoblin, Orcish, Gnoll, and the Common Tongue. Well, Elven characters above 15th intelligence are able to learn one additional language for every point of intelligence over 15. So at 18 intelligence, they can learn 3 extra languages. They also have improvision at 60 foot. Any secret or concealed doors, they have a chance just by merely walking within 10 foot of it to know it's there. It's a 1 in 6 chance. If they're actively searching for them, elven characters are 33% or 2 out of 6 likely to find a secret door, and 50% likely to discover a concealed portal. So if it's just got a tapestry in front of it, there's a 50% chance to find it if they're searching. They get a +1 to their dexterity score, but a -1 to their constitution. They're not as sturdy as your average human. Okay. If they're alone and not in a metallic armor, or if they're well in advance, say feet or more of a party which does not consist entirely of elves or halflings. And again, not in metal armor. An elf moves so silent he's able to surprise monsters 66.2 or 66 and 2/3%. So a 1 in 4 or 1 through 4 on a d6. You know, unless they have to open a door or something to get to them. Which in that case it drops down to a 33 or 33 and a third or 1 to 2. You know, now it's non-metal, but I do know of DMs that allow elven chainmail to count in that case. You know, they can be wearing elven chain and still sneak up. That's going to be something that your DM might allow. I know I will, usually. Alright. But that's going to bring us into gnomes. You know, gnomes prefer your rocky hills, well-wooded, and uninhabited by humans. They like to be kind of off by themselves. A gnome can be a fighter of 6th level, an illusionist of 7th level. In 1st edition, that was the only time that I'm aware I have to look again, but I believe it's the only time they can be what we would now consider a specialty mage. Though illusionist was a separate class at the time. And no other, but that's the only one of the races there that, besides humans, that could be, well, maybe, I don't know, half-elves might be able to be illusionists as well. But for the most part, that's the only magic user class they can use, and, yeah. But they can be an unlimited thief, an 8th level assassin. They can also operate as a fighter illusionist, or a fighter thief, or an illusionist thief. They also, again, they can be clerics. I just don't remember that information off the top of my head here. They're restricted, but if they're illusionist thief, they're restricted to, or no, if they're multi-class, they're restricted to wearing leather armor, regardless of the combination. Unless they are only going to be using their fighting skill. They still, again, have to divide their experience amounts. Similar to the gnomes, they are highly magic resistant. And it is the same progression as a dwarf. So, gnome characters are able to speak in addition to the alignment tongue and language and the common tongue, they can speak dwarvish, gnome, halfling, goblin, kobold, and can also communicate with any burrowing mammal. Yeah, moles, badgers, ground squirrels, rabbits, anything like that. Gnomes are unable to learn more than 2 languages, so I guess they do have the same as the dwarf in that case. They do have infravision up to 60 foot, and their probabilities are a little bit different, but they do have kind of some of the same abilities as the dwarf. They can detect the grade with an 80% probability. They can detect unsafe walls, ceilings, or floors with 70% probability. They can determine their approximate depth with 60% probability. And they can determine the direction of travel underground with a 50% capability. So, when you're underground, you don't have a lot of the clues that you're going north, south, east, or west. A gnome can actually figure that out with half the time, but they do have to be actively seeking it. In combat, they add a +1 to dice roll to hit either kobolds or goblins. And if they're attacked by gnolls, bugbears, ogres, trolls, ogre magi, giants, or titans, they subtract 4 from their opponents to hit because of their small size. Okay, your half-elves. They're half-elves can be found amongst either of their parentage's races. They don't usually they don't form their own communities. Strictly. So here they say cleric with a maximum of 5th level. A druid, and I think in the basic 1st edition Dungeons & Dragons, they could be unlimited as a druid. Because at the time, I don't believe the druid could get the higher levels. Some of the others could get. But I'm not. I think it was the Unearthed Arcana that got it above level 16. They can be a ranger for a maximum of 8th level, an 8th level fighter, an 8th level magic user, a thief, or an 11th level assassin. They can also become multi-class. And as far as I can remember, even with 2nd edition, they're the only one that can combine both mage and cleric as a multi-class. So you got your cleric fighters, your cleric rangers, cleric magic users, fighter magic user, fighter thief, mage thief, the cleric fighter magic user, or a fighter mage thief. You can just imagine how dangerous a cleric fighter mage can be. I mean, you got your healing and protective spells that a cleric has, as well as some attack spells. You got your fighting ability, and you got your mage spells. Now, with the 8th level magic user and fighter limits, it does limit it somewhat. You're not going to quite hit the super powerful mage spells, but you're still going to have some effective spells. Now, and it states that half-elven characters who choose cleric aren't limited by that class's available weaponry. And again, we'll go over that again with the when we do the classes. But clerics, for the most part, can only use blunt weapons. A multi-class half-elf cleric does not have to worry about that. They can use any weapon they want. Well, that's allowed with their other class. But they are heavily restricted in level, like I said. The ones that choose a thief are limited to the weapons and armor of that class when operating as a thief. So as long as they're not using their thieving skills, they're not limited. But if they want to use their thief skills, then they're going to have to use the weapons and armor for a thief. Again, all experience is divided up between the classes. Now, half-elves are 30% resistant to sleep and charm spells. Not as good as the elf. The human blood kind of diluted it a bit. But they still have that nice resistance, plus their saving throw, if it allows, let's see. They're able to speak the common tongue, their alignment language, plus Elvish, Gnome, Halfling, Goblin, Hobgoblin, Orcish, and Gnoll. Also, above 16th level, they're able to earn an additional language for every point of intelligence above 16, so they can get up to 2 bonus languages. They have improvision up to 60 foot. Um, just like elves, they have a ability to be able to sense secret doors and concealed doors. Merely, so if they just walk past one, they have a 1 in 6 chance of spotting it. If they're actively searching, it's a 2 to 6 chance of a secret door and 3 in 6 chance of a concealed door. Now we get your halflings. And if you're not familiar with halflings, think hobbits from the Lord of the Rings. Basically, they're the same thing. I believe actually in one or two of the early Dungeons and Dragons things, they were referred to as hobbits, but the Tolkien estate kind of said, "Hey, wait a second here," you know. So they changed the name to halflings. They're much like small humans. You know, there's 3 sub-races. There's and they could be either one of them, but it's a tall. Let's see, stout. Oh, Harefoot. And I can't remember the 4th or the 3rd one off the top of my head. So, like, character of halfling can be a fighter, a thief, or a fighter thief. Now, they cannot be higher than 6th level as a fighter. But, thief, they're unlimited. And I believe they can also be clerics, as I've said with others. But it's also pretty limited. But, if they are a fighter thief, they're limited to the weapons of a fighter or thief. Or the weapons of a thief. Same as any other. They can use the others when they're not being a thief, but... And the experience does get divided as usual. Now they are resistant to magic spells. So just like the dwarf and the gnome, every 3.5 points of Constitution is a +1 on the save. They also have a similar poison or similar resistance to poisons. So that's a benefit for them. Halfling characters are able to speak Common and the alignment, plus Dwarvish, Elven, Gnome, Goblin, Halfling, and Orcish. Halflings with 16 intelligence or higher get 1 additional language for every point of intelligence above 16. Some halfling characters have improvision, which it's they can have mixed bloods are up to 30% or up to 30 foot, while those pure stoutish blood are able to have 60 foot, which is the normal. Similar to those, they're able to note a passage up or down grade 75% of the time, and direction of travel 50% of the time. But again, they have to actually concentrate on doing this. If they're alone, just like an elf, if they're alone or well advanced and not metal armor, halfling characters are able to move very silent. As long as they don't have to open up a door or something, they surprise monsters 66 and 2/3% of the time. If a door must be opened, it's 1/3. It's 1/3 basically. 1 or 2 out of 6. They get a -1 from their initial strength, but they gain a +1 on dexterity. And here we go with half orcs. Now, half orcs basically will breed with anything. Or orcs will breed with just about anything. So, most of the offspring will be orcs, basically, just typical orcs. However, 1/10 of orc human mongrels, as they put it, that's how they put it in here, are sufficiently non-orcish to pass for human. They actually have more information in the monster manual on that. But yeah, the player characters, which are half orcs, are considered to be within that superior 10%. However, you can talk to your DM if you want to be, basically orcish. It's possible. That would be DM's judgment there. But I can't think of too many that, unless they're very fine sticklers, that wouldn't go for it. A half orc can be a level 4 cleric, a level 10 fighter. Now, this is the only class that has a limit on their thief level. They can only be an 8th level thief. Or I should say, the only race. But they have unlimited advancement as an assassin. They can also operate as in multiple classes, like a cleric fighter, cleric thief, cleric assassin, which, again, this is the only race that can be a multi-class assassin. A fighter thief or a fighter assassin. They have to provide, when playing as multi-class, they must abide by the restrictions of the least favorable class with regard to armor. So, if they're a thief cleric, they can only use leather armor. Or a thief fighter, same way. The earned experience is divided as normal. The half-orc characters are able to speak the common tongue and Orcish, plus their alignment tongue, which, again, I'll get into later. They're also able to learn a maximum of 2 additional languages. They do have 60-foot infravision. Now, they get a +1 to both their strength and constitutional scores, but they have a -2 penalty to their charisma. But that only applies to non-orcs, or non-half orcs. So you want to, whatever their initial, or the initial charisma is, you'll want that recorded. Same as your dwarves have. Okay, now humans. Humans have no penalties or bonuses. They're not limited as to what class they can become, nor do they have a max limit, other than what's in the class. Now, they also technically cannot multi-class. They cannot operate simultaneously in 2 classes. However, they can dual class, which means they go for a while and decide, you know what, I want to become a thief. Start off as a fighter, they want to become a thief. They can do that. Now there's good ways and bad ways of doing that. Though I say bad ways, but it just ways that make it more difficult. Let's put it that way. And there is actually, in first edition, a class where you actually have to dual class, or change your class. So that's kind of a description of the different races. And I'm just going to throw this in here. Each race obviously has preferences met to other races. A dwarf are they prefer dwarves. They prefer to be around dwarves. Yeah, and you find this in a lot of fantasy tales and everything. There's an antipathy between elves and dwarves. For whatever reason, I think the most common thought on it is elves are seen as kind of flighty and, don't take anything seriously, where dwarves are very serious. There's goodwill between dwarves and gnomes, as well as halflings and dwarves. They're kind of neutral to half elves and to humans. And as a rule, I say as a rule, but most commonly, dwarves hate half orcs. Flat out, no question. Okay, and with elves, again, there's antipathy with dwarves. They prefer elves. There's a tolerance to gnomes and to halflings. There's goodwill with half elves to a point. There's, in some places, half elves are viewed as lesser, but they're still not terrible. There's antipathy with half orcs, and they're neutral to humans. Now, your gnomes. Goodwill with the dwarves, tolerance to the elves, prefer gnomes, tolerance to the half-elves, goodwill with the halflings, hatred of half-orcs, and neutral to humans. Your half-elves are neutral towards dwarves, prefer elves or half-elves, tolerant to gnomes, neutral towards halflings. There's the antipathy with half-orcs, and tolerance of humans. Now here with the halflings, you get really there is some notations here with halflings due to the different types. Okay, so your tall fellows and stouts are goodwill with dwarves. The stouts are goodwill with dwarves. Everyone else all the others tolerate them. With the elves, it's the tall fellows. I think elves are great company. All the others just kind of tolerate elves. Gnomes are tolerated. Half-elves, they're kind of neutral toward them. Of course, they prefer their halflings. They're neutral to half-orcs and toward humans. The third, it's tall fellows, stouts, and I'm pretty sure it's hare feet. Or hare foots, however it is. Alright, your half-orcs. Hatred with dwarves. Antipathy with elves. Hatred with gnomes. Antipathy to half-elves. Neutral to halflings. Prefer other half-orcs. And they're tolerant of humans. With humans, they're neutral to the dwarves, elves, gnomes, halflings, and half-orcs. They're tolerant of half-elves, and they prefer to be around other humans. That's just kind of your general rule of thumb. If you can obviously have a character that just loves everybody, wants to get along with them. But general society, That's the general rule of thumb. So I hope you have enjoyed this. It was mentioned in the comments on my last video about having, pictures or something like that, rather than just my avatar up there. So I decided I'd try this. I hope you enjoy it. Please, if you enjoyed my content, leave me a like, sub if you haven't already. Tell your friends; they may enjoy it. And as always, if you like my content or if you don't, please leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. I enjoy reading the comments. So thank you all. Next time we do these videos, we're going to be discussing the character classes. And I will probably bring in classes out of the Unearthed Arcana. However, I am not going into the different world expansions. Just like with the races, I'm not going into the Dragonlance right now, or Spelljammer, or Alkadem, Dark Sun, all those. Those I may do separate videos on those, at another time. Thank you all. Have a great time. Just, stay safe out there, and try to enjoy life a little bit. Hit the right buttons here.